Great to have you here. Now, a group of law students under the umbrella of the concerned LLB graduates are seeking an interlocutory injunction to stop their 14th July entrance examination. Joy News' court correspondent Joseph Akable gives us a wrap of what to expect at the hearing and what the students are really seeking.
I'm standing in front of the law court complex. But our focus this morning is in one of the human rights courts within this premises that will be hearing that case involving some 11 law graduates and the General Legal Counsel through the Independent Examination Board. It is one case that flows from that landmark judgment delivered by the Supreme Court a month ago. That judgment, in simple terms, described as unconstitutional the decision of the Independent Examination Board acting in the capacity of the General Legal Counsel to require of persons who have studied law in various institutions across the country to take another entrance exam at the Ghana School of Law. Now that exam, Roland, interestingly, is taking place tomorrow. Now these students are saying that since the Supreme Court held that it was unconstitutional for such an exam to take place, they have rushed here to the court to get an injunction to restrain the General Legal Counsel and its assigned in this particular scenario the Independent Examination Board from organizing this exam. Now the main contention issue has to do with the order that came from the Supreme Court. And if I can read directly from that aspect of the judgment that is being has led them to come to court. I mean, reading from the judgment delivered by Justice Jones Doche with regards to the case filed by Professor Kwadwo Asare challenging that admission. It says, quote, as preparations towards admissions in October 2017 have already been initiated, and bearing in mind that persons who would avail themselves of such opportunities are qualified within the scope of regulations 2 and 3 as pronounced in this judgment, we do not think it is in the public interest to interfere with such arrangements. Now, the contention of the students in this particular matter is that, I mean, per that judgment, their understanding of not interfering with the present arrangement is that the Supreme Court agrees that they are qualified and they are entitled to that admission, for which reason they've headed to the court. So what we can expect this morning is heated legal arguments from lawyer for the 11 students, Kwadwo Asare, and lawyer for the General Legal Counsel, Kizito Benyu. They will be making arguments as to why the court should either restrain the General Legal Counsel from organizing the exam, or the court should maybe allow the General Legal Counsel to go ahead to undertake the exam. We are told that the exam is slated to come off tomorrow in the morning. It's taking place at the University of Ghana campus. You have students who have attained first degree in law from various universities all across the country, making it their point to take this exam. These students that we are talking about, these 11 students, are individuals that are supposed to take the exam that will be taking place tomorrow morning. Yet they are in court hoping in a last-ditch attempt to restrain the Independent Examination Board from undertaking the exam. What remains to be seen is, depending on which way it goes, in the event that injunction is granted, or when it is not granted, whether the students will go ahead to take the exam is one thing that we'll definitely be finding out from them in this courtroom. So in some few minutes' time, at exactly 9 a.m., the High Court, the Human Rights Court, to be specific, will be hearing the matter and will be hearing from lawyers from both sides.
That was earlier today. Now, a former director of the Ghana School of Law is questioning the orders of the Supreme Court in allowing the Ghana School of Law to proceed to organize the entrance examination for applicants to the school, despite the court's judgments that said the examination was unconstitutional. Kwadwo Asare is representing 11 law graduates who are seeking to halt the exam scheduled to take place tomorrow. The students initiated the action following a Supreme Court landmark judgment describing as unconstitutional the entrance exam and its accompanying interview session organized by the Independent Examination Board of the General Legal Counsel. We'll be bringing you more details on this particular case later in the bulletin. Now, the workers at the Pantai Psychiatric Hospital have called off their 3-day strike following negotiations with the health minister yesterday. The workers had been on strike to protest encroachment on their lands. Senior staff member Elvis Ekiamua has joined us on the line for more details. Now, it said, what informed your decision to call off your strike?
Thank you, and good afternoon to your listeners. The minister had a meeting with us, and in brief, he took our lands. That's why we have called off the strike.
When you say he took your lands or you took your lands, what do you mean?
He spoke our language.
He spoke your language. Okay, what were you looking to hear from him, and what did he say exactly?
We have been looking for a number of things. One, that there should be stoppage of development of the frontage of the hospital by private developers. 2, they should revoke all building permits that have been issued out. 3, steps should be taken to compulsorily acquire the land space fronting the hospital for public good.
And all of those were done yesterday?
Not that they were done yesterday. The minister, before meeting us, was in a meeting with management and a stakeholder who has documentation of some sort that indicated that he had actually bought a portion of the land space in front of the hospital. And the agreement with him is to the effect that he temporarily halts further development to give way to government to commence processes to compulsorily acquire the land space for the hospital. And we think that this is unique. In all of these things that we have been struggling with for the past 20 years, this is the first time a minister has actually come and look at the situation and assess the extent of danger, and actually had a meeting with a stakeholder and then has addressed us. And so we think that it's an end in sight, and there's a need for us to give the minister and the other stakeholders some reasonable amount of time.
So if you are giving them time, what are you expecting to see based on which you would continue to work?
From today, we want to see that work is no longer going on in terms of development, carrying on of building activities in front of the hospital. And then we will be getting close to management, who we believe will be liaising with the ministry to check whether indeed the processes will kick in, leading to acquisition compulsorily of the land space fronting the hospital.
Right, thank you very much, Elvis Ekiamia, for your time. Now, meanwhile, the Health Minister, Kwadwo, is accusing the Mahama-led administration of leaving a debt totaling over 100,000 Ghana cedis at the Health Ministry. Mr. Menu also stated the previous government did not contribute anything in the year 2016 for the procurement of vaccines for the country. The minister was addressing workers of the Pantine Hospital after he succeeded in getting them to call off their 3-day strike over the encroachment on their lands. We'll hear the minister shortly, but first, here's Maxwell Agbagba on how things unfolded yesterday.
It's very quiet here at the outpatient department of the Pantine Psychiatric Hospital. Usually, hundreds of patients report here daily for their medication, while fresh cases are also reported here. The usual hustle and bustle is completely missing, as the nurses who are supposed to provide the service are demonstrating.
We're currently here on the compound of the Pantine Hospital. On Monday, it was a sit-down strike. On Tuesday also, there was another sit-down strike. All efforts to get various stakeholders, the Ministry of Health, the Lands Commission, to resolve this issue has not yielded any results. These staff members of the Pantine Psychiatric Hospital are today embarking on a demonstration. In fact, they are leaving no stone unturned to register their displeasure.
Well, if we are spectators, if we are citizens and we are not spectators, I know our president is citizen, he's not spectators. He will listen to us.
You think he will listen to you?
Yes.
But we hear that, previous governments have not listened to you. They've not done anything to help the situation.
Let's talk about president.
So what do you think this present government?
We want the present government to come our aid, to come and stop the development and acquire the land for Pantine Hospital.
Back at the outpatients department, relatives of some patients are stranded. This woman has come all the way from the Bronx Alpha region. My medical personnel will not attend to her daughter.
So that's what transpired yesterday at the Pantine Psychiatric Hospital. Let's now hear the Health Minister, Kwadwo.
Working close with the Finance Minister to try to see how they can upscale some resources for us. After the approval of the budget, what we have, not until he goes for a supplementary budget, it will be very difficult for him to release anything for us at all. The bottom line of the matter is that the previous government has committed debts, not in the Ministry of Finance, just Ministry of Health, debt overhang. It's close to about 134 million Ghana cedi as at end of December 2016. To the extent that co-funding for sponsors who support this country, donor partners, to even procure vaccines for all the hospitals in our country. 2016, the government paid zero, nothing. So the little goods and services release that we got this year, just last 1 month or so, we have to pay out of 53 million, 43 million to ensure that we pay for co-funding to give us vaccines. Last week, National Security reported that some hospitals were running out of stock of vaccines that we use in this country. So that is a grim situation. But we are hopeful that all the challenges that we have with implementing the budget, we are packing them back to the Ministry of Finance, and they're giving us assurances. If revenues should go up and there's a need for us to do some supplementary budgeting, they will turn back and look at us a little bit. So we may have to just continue struggling with the little that we have until some new resources are allocated to us. It is not a very pleasant situation, but this didn't start only this year. For the past 3 or 4 years, you are all aware that no facility, no government MDA or agency was getting any releases for anything, right? The other good thing was that, you see, we came to meet a backlog of nurses that have been bonded who could not be posted because they couldn't add on to the payroll. They wouldn't get money to pay them. As I speak, over the last 6 months, we have actually posted close to 15,000 of these young people to go into facilities to work for us. And we are using money to recruit them. We have said we don't want a situation where you will hire somebody and go and work for 2 years without salary. So we are allocating resources in a very optimal manner, in a very prudent manner. And I believe some of these challenges, almost all of them, will be tackled going forward. But we just need to exercise some restraint and patience, and government is working to tackle almost every challenge that we have within the health sector. The situation is not the best. It's a very grim situation, but we are not going to run away from an obligation that is placed on us. So we are working to resolve it.
Right, let's now move to the Ashanti region, where 5 months after Joy News highlighted the danger posed by rusted metal guards on Scaffold Interchange in Kumasi, nothing has changed. Amidst the precarious situation, authorities remain clueless while road users risk their lives every minute on the structure. Nana Sensumenta, who reported on the looming disaster, went back to the site to assess the deterioration on Kumasi's first flyover.
When Scaffold Interchange was constructed in 2007, it was envisaged the persistent traffic congestion on the corridor would end. To a large extent, that has been achieved, especially with construction of similar structures around the city. However, lives and property are exposed to danger, especially in case of the slightest of accident. All metal guards meant to protect people have rusted and broken off. Lots of concerns have been raised about the maintenance culture of the Ghanaian citizen. Here at Scaffold Interchange is a typical example. Few months ago, these bars were just rusting off, but now they have rusted and fallen off the bridge. Pedestrians and passerbys are worried about the situation.
Before I talk, my question to you, who is responsible to take care of these things? I hope this road, immediately they finish, they hand it over to road and highways. They know about 2 years or 3 years, this thing will just spoil or damage. So my question is, none of these people, I don't know passing here, they will just look at it. But what I know in Ghana, they want something to happen. Somebody will just fall here and the person will die. Then those who are in charge, then they will just wear coats and then come and then see it, and then people will know them. So this minister, this and this and this and this. So our maintenance culture in Ghana, boss, is very bad.
I think this one is a lack of just putting oil paint. Since they finished making this road, there hasn't been any painting. That's the problem. And it's very risky. If I'm walking and see a madman, he pushes me down here, I'm going to die. So the authorities have to do something. It's just oil paint and then that problem will be solved. It's not good at all, because when you pass in here, you see maybe unfortunately incidents, maybe you can fall down and maybe it's not good.
Say, if they turn a blind eye on this situation and there is death before an action takes place, God in heaven will question them. I'm speaking as a pastor to the KMA boss that they should act now. If they waste time for any tragedy to occur before taking action, I'll summon them to God.
Checks review, even the Asokwa Interchange is suffering similar fate. Urban Roads officials said they can do little after repeated reminder to higher authorities on the situation have yielded no desired results. Several calls on city authorities seem to have yielded no results. Until something is done immediately, the worst could happen. Reporting from Kumasi on the Scaffold Interchange, Nana Sensumensa.
Now, doors, hinges, bolts, and nuts are common sights in all Ghanaian homes. Locally made hinges especially can be found on almost every door and window. But do you know the once booming trade is experiencing a downturn? Joy News' Kwesi Debra visits a blacksmith to get more on this unhinged situation.
Alex Kofi dropped out of school in his teen age to learn a trade as a blacksmith at Swami Magazine. It's been 20 years since he completed his apprenticeship, having specialized in the manufacture of bolts and nuts. Government had in the past provided avenue for his products. The story, however, is different today.
I always manufacture bolts and nuts. That is the work we always do. So then time, the government will always help us to get a lot of jobs to do in the shop. Bolts and nuts, center bolts, plug extension, and a lot of things. We have a lot of work to do. We always form bulging pins which they use to form gates and some arrows. We have a lot of work to do in the blacksmith work. But a time ago, I could remember that the work has dropped down, or the work has fallen. Why? Because in my side, I can say the import of those things that break our job today.
With the dwindling fortunes of boot and nut business, Alex has now turned into manufacturer of door hinges. Somehow, that is beginning to suffer similar fate. Kwesi Appiah is a building contractor who used to work with locally made bolts and nuts and hinges. He stopped using them 3 years ago because his clients rather prefer imported materials for finishing. Besides, the local ones must be reworked.
Yeah, and the local ones, problem you want to say at times, and can be a problem.
The local ones aren't well done. Clients always complain. All the time, they prefer the imported ones because they are smooth and have no rough edges.
And it's all the time I prefer foreign one.
Adjoa Comfort says she was once contracted by foreign partners to stock foreign hinges, which she had initially rejected. She had to rescind her decision because of the demand for smoother and more shiny hinges. Imported hinge of this size goes for 5 cedis, and the local one for 4 cedis. Adjoa says users are never bothered by the price difference. Clients always tell me the locally made hinges are time-consuming, she says. I believe with enough machines, the local ones can become competitive. As government prepares to roll out initiatives for small and medium-scale industries, Finishing will be key. Will the local industry be able to compete effectively with the foreign ones? Your guess is as good as mine. Reporting for Joy News, Kwesi Deborah.
Now, the municipal chief executive of Wenchi, Dr. Prince Kwachi Afriyie, has closed down the Wenchi Model 2C kindergarten block, which has 3 classrooms with a population of over 200 pupils. Speaking to Joy News' Brong-Ahafo regional correspondent Anas Sabit, the MCE said he ordered for the closure of the school because it posed a real threat to the safety of the pupils and teachers who use the classrooms. Here's a report by our Brong-Ahafo region correspondent Anas Sabit.
So we are right here at the Wenchi Model 2C kindergarten block, where we understand just yesterday the municipal chief executive of the Wenchi Municipal Assembly has closed down this structure for reasons he has stated, as the structure looking so dilapidated. Behind me is the block which was built, decades ago or during colonial regime. According to the MCE, the structure is not fit to house a number of students. We are told over 200 of these kids study under this dilapidated structure on a daily basis. So he has ordered for the structure to be closed down. We'll be going in there to see for ourselves the kind of structure students or children have been studying in for the past years. We will also be having a live interview with the municipal chief executive as we want to find out from him the reasons why he took this decision to close down the structure.
This structure cannot be renovated. We have to pull it down and put a new conducive or befitting structure for the school.
So the assembly is thinking of?
Yeah, we are yet. We are going to have a meeting and we look at the budget. We may appeal to, Joy FM, multimedia, wonderful station. We hope you appeal for funds for us to save that school, because if we should have having a disaster here, by now the whole country will be donating to the bereaved families. So this is also, we take as a medium to appeal to Ghanaians, those with who have kids, to also donate to put that structure back. And we are going to appeal right to the Ministry of Education, local government, and also get funds to support us to put a new structure there for them.
Okay, Chief, is this the only set structure you have, or you have spotted a couple of them?
This is the first one we have seen, and our teams on the ground, as many as possible that we see that pose danger to health, danger to the welfare of the children, we will close it down.
Okay. And lastly, would you encourage schools who have similar problems to report to?
100%. We don't want Wenchi to be in news again. We remember what happened in Kintampo. Wenchi was in the news for bad reason. And we want Wenchi not again for this to happen. That's why we are taking all this inquiries, especially as we are entered the rainy season. There may be storms, so this poor structure can collapse at any time on these poor school children. That's why we are taking this measure. Those that need to be closed will be closed. Those that need to be renovated, as we have said, we are going to renovate them. But it's a sad news that we have uncomputed structure all around. Places where they may not even need a new classroom, but we have put it there. But this time, we are going to the people. We won't sit for ourselves. Those where they actually need school building, we put it there. We are not going to do things for political gain. We don't do political projects. We are going to make sure that things are planned. Remember, the Minister for Planning is from here.
Teachers and yes, those who used to take care of the school, what happens to them?
They will be taking care of them in the temporary structures. That's around. They have dotted temporary structures around, even though it's not standard for children, but we have allowed them to move into that. So the teachers will be going there to take care of them.
Are we aware the number of students?
Roughly, that building used to have around 400 students, but as parts were collapsed, they moved them out into some of these temporary structures.
Time now for a short breather, but when we come back, we'll take you to St. Chi Methodist JHS in the Eastern Region, where students there are having to study under trees for lack of a proper structure. We'll also be hearing from the GES on their plans to construct schools for all of these dilapidated structures. Stay tuned in. Thanks for staying with us. Now, students of the St. Chi Methodist JHS in the Eastern Region are having to study under trees after an old mud brick structure built several decades ago collapsed, leaving them without any classrooms. Though a JHS block began in 2013 could have been available to them, the structure has been abandoned halfway. Correspondent Kwame Yanka has more.
8,286 structures across the country, both basic, secondary, technical, I'm talking about pre-tertiary. We make provision that all these structures.
Challenge with an uncompleted classroom block, there is also the issue of furniture. 2 or 3 pupils share a desk meant for one, while some are seated on cement blocks. The headmaster, Samuel Wadiado, laments that even the new structure is a death trap. According to him, the uncompleted building built over 4 years ago has no pillars supporting it. Those school authorities have attempted to get the Sujuman District Education Office and the Assembly to fix the problem. Their efforts so far have been fruitless. They've been told that there are no funds to complete the abandoned junior high school, which is a Get Fund project.
It all started on the 30th of May 2013, and they told us they will complete it in 3 months' time. But up to date, whenever we complain about it, they are also telling us that it is a Get Fund project, and now they are no more getting the funds to complete the work.
This has compelled school authorities to combine 2 different local language classes. While some study ever, others practice Ekwiapimtri in the same classroom. Their day is determined by changes in the weather.
What I want the government to do is, if you can look at that building over there, we want the government to complete the building for us so that we can study in it.
We don't have desks. The mono desks, we are sharing it in pairs. Even some of us, the desks are sport. We even sit on blocks. The teachers even do not have an office. We are lacking computer labs. So when it's time for ICT, we find it difficult to learn. We want the government to help us to also provide us ICT labs and new dual desks to sit on.
We have shortage of desks and classrooms. When it starts raining, we don't get a chance as students to learn or study or even get what the teacher is trying to teach us. I think if the government help us through that desk, even chalk to write on the board, is very difficult for us. Some of us, the students, we normally contribute and buy the chalk.
The students say they can only fairly compete with colleagues in the cities if they learn in a conducive environment. A report by Kwame Yanka for Joy News.
Now, governments will begin the construction of 8,260 schools in September this year. This was made known by the Public Relations Officer PRO for the Ghana Education Service, GES, Reverend Jonathan Bette. Reverend Bette told me on Joy News Desk today the schools cut across basic, secondary and tertiary levels. For Joy News' agenda in the past 2 weeks, we have focused on schools in dilapidated structures across the country. Reverend Bette acknowledged the challenge is daunting, but said work will begin on it as soon as funds are released by the Ministry of Finance.
8,286 structures across the country, both basic, secondary, technical, I'm talking about pre-tertiary. We make provision that all these structures will be rehabilitated, some will be reconstructed.
Yeah. By what period?
Well, when you talk about period, for now, Minister of Finance is giving money for the building of this infrastructure across the country. So when we talk about the date, I can tell you that we need to get the money as early as possible. By September, I believe this money will be out for us to start the full project on these things. Some are going to go through construction, new construction. We have to demolish and then build new one. Some who that are not so serious, we're going to rehabilitate them. For now, I can tell you that GOG, or Get Fund Budget, is on the way to make sure that we get the money for this project.
By September?
We are constructing about 35 and then rehabilitation of 5, making 4 at a time.
So 40 at a time?
Yes, at a go. We make provision.
So help me understand. Are you going to start with 40 in September and then we take the rest as they go along? Or with these 8,000, you have, okay, from September, we are going to start tackling these 8,000?
Yeah, that is the way we're going to do it. By September, August, September, these 8,286 are going to begin across the country.
All of them?
All of them across the country.
So where from the 40 you mentioned?
Now, the 40, I'm saying that they are the serious dilapidated ones that are ongoing now as I'm talking to you. Government has given money and contractors have started working on this. We have also spoken to the district assemblies, and the district assemblies are also working towards this that I have just mentioned. We are very serious with what we are doing. I can tell you that it is not now that they are starting. I said earlier on that it is an ongoing project at some places in this country, and this large number that we're talking about will begin. We have already started some. And before you realize, you'll see there's 8,000. In no time, I believe by the end of this year, you'll see a change. But you must also understand, and the public must also know that if you are planning for a quality thing, you don't have to rush. You don't have to rush in. If you're talking about school building that will last for the next 50 years, then it should be a time taking something. You should make sure that the right contractors are contacted, the right materials are used, the money, the quantum of money that you needed are given so that you'll be able to do a proper job for this nation. But if we are pushed, or the Ghana Education Service is pushed to take an action immediately, you realize that we will build an infrastructure and within 5-10 years, we have the same problem.
Now, the Eastern Region Hospital in Afriyie has detained a 12-year-old girl for 3 weeks over her inability to settle her hospital bills. Hilary Deku, a Class 6 pupil of the Obotu Pine Local Authority Basic School, still remains in the custody of the hospital after she was diagnosed and treated of a meningitis condition. Little Hilary, who is also to settle an amount of 2,500 Ghana cedis before she'll be made to go home, has a deteriorating health condition. She could neither speak nor make a gesture. She's grown lean and looks pale. She could only pass urine through a catheter. Hilary's biological mother has abandoned her. Her father, a poor farmer, has been her only source of hope, but due to hard economic conditions, he has become helpless. Kwame Deku can only bang his hopes on the Lord. He feels her brilliant daughter, who cannot walk, would survive with the needed help she requires. We'll bring you more on this issue in our subsequent bulletins. Keep watching Joy News for updates on that one. Stay tuned.